while during your UAT session. And obviously, the security roles that they're going to get is going to be similar to what you had in your previous system. So I suppose the best way to have a way around this is to sort of speak to the business process owners about who gets what roles, who gets what, who gets what duties and privileges and stuff like that. So what I'm going to show you today is the first part, because there are two parts to this. There are two categories. You have the security layer. Okay, the security layer is your role, your duty, and your privilege. And then you have your permissions, which comes under your securable objects. So when we say securable objects, we're talking about how do we get people provision to have access to menus, to forms, to services, setting up endpoints and stuff like that. So what I'm going to be able to do today is I'm just going to talk about, I have, let me share my screen. Can you see my screen at all? Hello?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay.
It seems, yeah.
Okay, so this is what the security architecture looks like within Dynamics 365. So from the top, if we take it from the top, okay, we have the authentication.
I think we can see just your Teams, where you have Teams display.
Oh, okay. Because I'm actually trying to display a PowerPoint. Just bear with me a sec.
Okay, let's see your PowerPoint now.
Okay, so the security architecture within Dynamics 365 is split into two categories. Okay, so you have your role, you have your duty, and you have your privilege. Okay, so those are the three that we want to talk about today. I would not have the time to go into detail about permissions because, as I said to you, Ahmed, I need to round up before 5 o'clock. Yeah. So what I'm planning to do is to have another part 2 session so that we can actually talk about the permissions, which is more to do with the securable objects. That's the most interesting thing about security. This is where you start to manipulate menu items, the tables and the fields, giving access to users, giving them access to headers, but not the lines, or give them lines and headers and stuff like that. So I'm not going to be able to go through that today. I'm thinking that maybe we can have that another time. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is let's start with the very basics, which is the authentication. Okay. Now the authentication, as you can see from here, comprises of the users. Okay. If you want to bring in if you want to provision a new user, from most projects that I've been on, it has to be done via the Azure Active Directory. Okay, so what I'm going to be showing you today is the Azure directory, how to import users from the Azure directory into 365, and then how to give those users roles, how to give them duties, and then how to sort of have a look at permissions. But obviously, this is usually based on whatever information you get from your business process owner that you're working with. Now, I'm gonna let's make a start. I'm gonna show you real quick. I'm gonna go into Azure. So you can still see my screen, right? You can see the Azure screen, my Azure screen.
You only see the PowerPoint.
Okay.
Security architecture.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Right, okay. Now, this is the Azure Active Directory, and ideally, what happens in this kind of project is that, as a functional consultant, you would not probably have access to this. Okay, you will not have access to this, but your client's IT team are the ones who are actually going to be in charge of this, in charge of the Azure side of things. So if you want to provision new users in 365, you have to go to them, right? That person needs to be added to the AAD, okay, before they can actually get provisioned into Dynamics 365. So let's have a look and see how that's done. So if you have a look here, I have the Azure Active Directory here. And if I go to users, all right, so these are the users I have at the moment, okay, within the system. So if I wanted to say, for instance, some of these users, we need to provision them to start using Dynamics 365, it has to be done from here, okay? So just as an example, let me quickly create a user. So let's call that user Maurice Green. Okay. Okay, so we just want to do an auto generate password, because that password will be that. So that's the password we will give to Maurice if he's going to log in. So he uses his email address and his password, and then we'll get him into Dynamics that way. Okay, so I'm going to create that user. Okay, so Maurice Green is now added to the user because he needs to work on Dynamics 365 on the project we're working on. Okay, so we'll save that. And then we can now go into Dynamics 365. Just bear with me. So you can see my screen, right? Can you see my Dynamics 365 screen?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Right, okay, so now let's make our way down to sysadmin and users. Okay, so these are the current users that we have in the system. Okay, but we've been told by the client that we need to bring Maurice Green because he needs to work on a project as a functional consultant or something. So what we then do is this import button here is linked directly to the AAD. Okay, so if I click on this button here, that should give me a list of all the all those names that we saw earlier. It's a little bit slow, but it will come up. So it's retrieving that and it's trying to get it from the Active Directory and it's going to drop it into. So those are the names, as you can see. Okay, So whoever you want to select to work on the project, we don't need any of these guys. So let's just say we want Maurice. Okay, and then I import that. Right, now if we go and try and find Maurice, we should be able to find him. There he is. Okay, so if I then double click on Maurice, so this is the authentication part I was telling you about from that PowerPoint I showed you. Okay, the authentication is bring the user in as a role. So what we're going to do now is we're going to assign Maurice some roles. Okay, so we can see Maurice is here already. Okay, and these are the roles. These are, if you click on assign roles, that gives you the opportunity to go in and assign him any roles that you want. Okay, so again, as I was saying, as a functional consultant, you need to be speaking to the business process owner about what needs to come in, or what those roles need to be. Okay, so if you want to provision Maurice as an accounts payable clerk, you click on that. Okay, or if we want to give him accounts payable manager as well, and you click on that. So Maurice has now been provisioned to use Dynamics 365. Okay, now the thing with Dynamics 365 is that sometimes, okay, there might be a situation where Maurice is only allowed to work on certain legal entities. Okay, so we might say, right, okay, what legal entities do we want him to work on? Because you obviously don't want everybody to have access to everything. So from here, you can assign organization. Okay. At the moment, he's been granted all access to everything, but we don't want to do that. We just want to grant him maybe a few. Okay. So let's just say.
So you have to do it twice or 3 times.
Contoso.
You need source for jollof rice and sauce for the stew.
Contoso retail. Then we go down. We grant that. Okay. So anytime Maurice logs in, he can only see Contoso retail. Okay. You can add some more if you want. Okay. You can add anything. Obviously, it's down to the business process owner that is down to them about what rights you give them. Okay. So that is provisioned. And now Maurice has now become a user. What I also want to show you, which is very, very important from that PowerPoint I showed you earlier, is the security configuration. Okay, this is where everything happens for the configuration for security. You have when the screen comes up, you see your roles, your duties, your privileges. Okay, so as you can see from my screen, the roles, these are all the roles that we have. Okay, you can create new ones. You can do whatever you want, but this is box standard, and there are hundreds of these that have come from Microsoft. Okay, so as you can see, the duties, the accountant, it gives you a summary, a synopsis of what an accountant does. Okay, reviews accounting, customer invoice, vendor invoice, and stuff like that. Yeah, so again, there's a long list. Okay, so if you want to check his privileges, you can either go from here, check his privileges, or you can check his duties. Let's go to duties first. So duties, basically, what are duties? Duties are really business processes. Okay, so what is role A going to be doing? You can assign one role. One person can have one role and many duties. okay? And also it can have many privileges. And also a privilege can be assigned to a role. But what you can't do is have a user on the system. That user has to have a role. If it doesn't have a role, it can't be set up in the system. So a user gets a role, okay? That role gets duties, as many duties as possible, again, depending on business requirements, okay? And then the privileges, okay, again, I'll probably call that sub-processes, which is now broken down into further, into it, which is more granular. It gives you access to things, access to fields, access to menus, and stuff like that. It will come up in a minute. But what I found working with these projects is that if you're going to set up these roles, let's say you have a project roadmap. You want to start your UAT on the 1st of August. Okay, you've been doing your end-to-end testing. You've been doing your integrations. You've been doing all your data migration. Everything's been done, and you're working on it. If you're going to start your UAT on the 1st of August, please, you need to give room to set all these up. There's a lot to do. Okay, I've actually experienced this. I've done this so many times. So if you're going to provision users ready for them to be doing UAT on the 1st of August, I'll probably say start about 3 weeks before. Okay, now what does that involve? That involves speaking to the PBO, which is the business process owner, and saying, could you please provide a list of everyone that's going to be involved in the UAT? Okay, so what domain, what process area? So we usually split it up into OTC, R2R, and into P2P, okay? Procure to pay, cash, order to cash. And then the other one, what we need to do from there is under those banners, then put the names of who is going to be doing what. So for R2R, say James, okay, John, Mohammed, or whoever, okay? For R2R, it could be someone different, because as you can tell from here, people do different things within a department. So what I'll suggest you do, have that list in a spreadsheet, put those names on there, okay? And try and get access to what the previous roles were in the old system, okay? What it was in the old system, and then go back and say, what do you want us to do with this? Okay, but obviously they might want people's roles to change. Someone would have left the company that still sits in the old legacy system, okay? So again, you're gonna have to do some data cleansing around that, making sure that only the users that you need will be going in, will be going into the system. But what I didn't show you, what I can show you very quickly that I missed out there, if you go to users, okay, if you go to users again, what I normally do is once I've got a list, the last UAT I had was they had about 50 users in 3 different locations, okay? So what you can do is once you got that list, you can run it in a batch, okay? So when you got that list together, open up the running background, okay? And then just set a date and say, I want all these to go into into the system. You're taking this out straight from the Active Directory, okay? Set processing to yes. Batch group, you can set that to come batch. You can sort of come batch group, and then okay that, okay, and then you can go into your logs to make sure that the process is going to run, okay. So I should have shown you that. That's probably a good way of doing that, okay. Rather than picking users one by one, I'll use a batch. So let's just go back to the securities again. Right, I was talking about roles, duties, privileges, and what I was also going to show you today, but I won't be able to do that today, is I was actually going to show you something about permissions as well, because permissions is, when we talk about permissions, we're now moving into the securable objects, okay? Now, who can do what in what field? So let's say, for instance, you start your UAT, okay? And the accounts receivable clerk should be able to edit a field, okay? And she can't edit it, he or she can't edit it. they come to you. Okay, and then what you have to do is you probably need to troubleshoot that to see why she can't do that, why she can't see those privileges. So what I normally do is I'll probably go into what this would do for you is just to show you quickly. It would show you some privileges. So here, usually you're also able to do this from the AOT, but obviously I don't have Visual Studio, so I'm not going to be able to show that to you today. But what I'm going to be able to show you next time is how to change these settings. Okay, so we set up a user, they can't see something. We can go into a purchase, into a sales order, and but I'm not going to be able to do that today because I'm still in the middle of setting that up. Okay, so we can have another session on that. I'm happy to do that.
Okay. All right.
So this is just a quick overview of roles, duties, privileges. Okay, so after you come to the privileges, I'm just trying to show you how you can use privileges to get to. Okay, so if I click on tables. Okay. Okay, so basically that is, I'm not able to get to that now somehow, but I won't really worry about that. So we'll do that for the audit trail. Each time somebody goes into the system, there's an audit trail. Okay, there's an audit trail, and I think you can find that audit trail. We don't want to do that. I think it's that's strange. What I'm looking for is the logs, but I can't find. Okay, yeah, these are logs. Okay, so each time everybody logs in, so that's another security measure. It's logged here. Okay, every time it shows the time they logged in. Okay, it shows the time they were online for. Okay. If I was going to show you something else, which I think is also very useful, is sometimes when you're speaking to users, they want to see some reports. Okay, so there are 4 or 5 reports here within the system that we can have a quick look at. If you go to security, you go to, so these are the 4 reports you can get. Now, the thing is, the users can turn around and say that they want other reports. Then obviously that would have to be some kind of customization. But what I usually try to do within it is I personally do not really. It's a lot of work doing extensions and customizations on these projects. So, but if the user, if it's a business requirement that they want to see certain roles, then that's what it's going to have to be, you know. So these are user role assignments. Okay. So what this does, it just gives you everything about the user roles and the assignments. Okay. So Alicia, for instance, has got budget clerk, buying agent, okay, and she's also got employee. She's got all of these. Okay. April, she has accounts payable. Every single project I've worked on, the business they've asked for this. Okay. Okay. So they can always review this and say, right, okay, why is April having accounts payable? She should have this, that, and that. Okay. So I've actually seen that happen where you'd have to get this report over to the users for them to review. Okay. I'm going to close that and just show. Another quick report, which is security role access. So some of these reports, you need to be careful when you're running them. I rather run these in batch, as a batch process, especially if the report is so huge. Okay, and they're requesting a report for maybe tomorrow morning. Yeah, and I'm busy on my system. Sometimes I'll just sort of. So here you can actually select the role that you want. So auditor. Okay, and then run that. So I'm just showing you this because these are, you can easily come to this and review these reports and have a look and see what each report does. Okay, so it looks as that's probably one report that we shouldn't have run. Some of these reports are huge that it takes a while to run. So ideally, what we will probably do next time is to see how we can sort of manipulate the forms. Okay, how we can get users, or how we can hide some fields if we don't want users to use those fields. Okay, and only make it visible to certain people. And also for the roles where you don't want people to do certain functions like deleting stuff or save or creating a new vendor or creating a new sales order and stuff like that. We can have a look at that next time. So that is just going to take a while. So let's just leave that. So that is sort of the authentication part of it. Okay. We're not going to be able to fully go into the authorization because of time constraints today, but I can assure you that I'll get that will be ready for next time. So it looks as if this report. Does anyone have any questions for us to round up on this one? So yeah, so from my experience from this kind of projects, is the planning is absolutely absolutely paramount. What you don't want to do during UAT is to be finding out who's supposed to be doing what on the first day. That should have been cleared up. What I normally do is I just have a spreadsheet. Okay, I have a spreadsheet of those names, and I'd also have a look at their availability, who's doing month end, who's on holiday. and sort of put something together and have that finalized within those first 3 weeks. I've also worked on projects where on the first day of UAT, nothing was ready. So what that does to the project is that it delayed it by 2 weeks because something went wrong with the setting up of security roles. And if we're talking about a handful of users, that's not too bad, okay? But when you're talking about a global project where you have about 50, 60 users and they all need to be provisioned, then a lot of planning needs to go into that. Yeah. So I think is everyone clear on what we've done? Is that okay, or is there any questions and stuff like that?
For me, I have the question for now. Second.
Yeah. There's someone who Shay. I haven't heard. I don't think you've been in any of our calls before. Hello. You're probably on mute.
Hello, Shay, you there?
Ahmed, have you worked on anything around security roles and stuff like that in any of your projects?
Yes. I'm working on security for especially on the CRM part, but on the ERP, yes, of course, but not often as well. Anyway.
Okay, because I think it's probably one of the most crucial parts of the project because
exactly.
Because when I first experienced it, it was challenging. But what I found out, what you probably find out with most of these is that it's better to do them out of the box. But if it requires any kind of extension or any kind of customization, then the developer has to be involved in that. Okay. You can also access these via the AOT usually, but you need to have, I think that parameter is called AOS authorization or something like that within the AOT, but obviously you need to have Visual Studio and stuff like that. So usually developers will be the ones who are going to be making all those changes if the users require any form of any kind of customization. For instance, adding new users or adding new duties and new duties and privileges and stuff like that. That is usually done on the projects I've worked on by developers. So, and it's up to the functional guy to make sure those work within the system. Yeah. So that is that's all I can say on security architecture for now for part 1. So for part 2, hopefully we will do a quick. What I plan to do for part 2 is that I'll just do a quick sort of a quick refresher on this one, and then we're going to part 2 because part 2 I think is the one where we need to have a look at more stuff and do more work around. So I'll have something ready by then. Yeah. So someone else has joined. I think it's Olajumoke. Hello, I think Shei's done. He can't hear us, can he? Hamed.
I think it's on mute.
Okay. So do you sort of have any questions and stuff, anything around security roles and stuff like that?
For me, I do have questions. But I think the way it's been done in ERP is quite different from the CRM.
Oh really? I haven't worked on CRM. I've always. How does it work in CRM?
In CRM,